Hey everyone, and welcome to What the Future Shopping. I'm Matt Carmichael, editor of WTF, and an SVP in the Trends and Foresight practice at Ipsos Strategy 3, and your host today. We've got a fun issue to cover, but I want to mention that all of the data you'll see in this issue and more is available free to download at future.ipsos.com. And beyond that, I'm happy to do presentations for your teams or organizations free. I can even remake some other WTFs or other Ipsos research into the discussion. Just yeah. Let's go back a moment. And I want to look at previous WTF, our future of risk. And this was the super dystopian cover, which was kind of fitting, although it was really an issue about avoiding risk. But not in that issue, nor in our other issues about the future of conflict or the future of democracy, did I use the word hellscape. No, more than 40 issues of WTF in, the first use of the term appears here when discussing the future of shopping. And yes, there are aspects of the future of shopping that might sound on the surface to be a little dystopian, but they're hopeful futures too, where picking up the essentials as well as the fun to haves and the want to haves becomes easy, instant, and dare we say, entertaining. Today, we're on the continuum of a move from omni-channel retail into omnipresent and even omniscient retail. Soon, everything everywhere will be shoppable, payments will be made in real time, and all our data will make targeting ads and entertainment seamless. We'll be passively targeted on every physical and digital surface, and we will actively shop in our content and even off the bodies of strangers we meet on the street. You won't just comment nice shoes to a passerby. You'll be able to snap a pic and have it delivered to your house by the time you get home. Of course, then you'll have to pay for it, which is a tension worth noting, as a wide swath of America's consumers who are racking up record credit card debt against stubbornly high interest rates. How will your brand thrive in this landscape? And how important is it to lean into trends? There's no better example, in my opinion, these days of a brand understanding and taking advantage of shopping trends right now than Stanley with its near ubiquitous multicolored mug. This product has transformed a 110-year-old business and grown its sales tenfold. This is kind of a scale replica here of where their sales used to be versus where they are now. And this product has transformed this business. It's one thing to see that in a startup who has some new product or some new service or invention. But to do that in a well-established company is truly remarkable. So how did Stanley pull this off? First, it hired the guy who helped make Crocs a thing. And he brought with him the understanding of the role of influencers and drop culture and, frankly, consumer FOMO. And part of it was simply a better understanding of gender dynamic and an awakening that Stanley marketed its products to women, not just blue-collar dudes with their thermoses. And we'll talk a lot about these trends later with Taylor Weldon, the creative director of Careology, who we touched on earlier this year in WTF Manufacturing. The Ipsos Future of Shopping study, there really are gender differences in how men and women shop and buy, which in 2024 shouldn't surprise anyone, and yet it seems to. Think back just 15 years ago when a major grocery chain undertook a pretty standard SKU reduction effort but branded it Project She, which stood for Simplify Her Experience. It seems the company felt that women shoppers were overwhelmed by the sheer number of products available to them. A blogger at the time compared this to that talking Barbie doll that was briefly on the market that said things like, math class is tough when you pull the string at the back of its neck. Another blogger wrote at the time, the very idea is beyond insulting, and pointed out that men shop for groceries too. So it seems a little crazy that brands are still struggling to understand women and men. Many are. And as we see increasingly diverse, intersectional, and fluid consumer base, brands will need to quickly ramp up their product development and marketing to appeal to tomorrow's shoppers. Marketers and makers can tap into niches and, through social media and online spaces, collect and connect enough passionate followers to grow a business or a marketplace. A mashup of mashed niche, if you will. But it's worth noting that those who are most used to social shopping and who are leaning into sustainability, i.e., younger shoppers, are most optimistic about the futures of shopping. In shopping and any business, really, understanding and taking advantage of trends can lead to growth and innovation for a brand. Shopping, which was upended by e commerce at the start of the century, seems ripe for a new era of disruption. Key questions for the future of shopping: what will your retail portfolio look like? How will you recruit and retain a diverse consumer base? How do you tap into your most passionate consumers? And can they create a community? Can your products take on a second life or be made more sustainably? And will your customers be able to afford to buy all the things? In the future, people are still going to shop. It doesn't have to be a hellscape. There are plenty of positive trends to tap into. We just have to make sure that a future that people want to buy your into. We have an awesome panel to talk through the answers to all those questions with. So let's dive in. Today, we're covering the future of shopping as we do from a wide range of perspectives. We'll talk to Angel Bellin, Vice President and Head of Cultural Intelligence at Publicis Group's The Community, who works with one of the world's largest retailers. We'll talk to Helen Herrick, Principal at MBH Architects. We'll talk to Taylor Weldon, Creative Director at Careology. Virginia Chamley, Vintage Expert and author of Big Thrift Energy. And Lynn Merrick, Editor of Payments. But first, let's set the stage with the shifts we're seeing. My colleague Trevor Sudanu laid out the shifts we see in the future of shopping, starting with AI and automation. He says AI curation is poised to increase as more sophisticated predictive algorithms analyze consumer data and past behavior to offer tailored suggestions that can aid in choice. And also, AI-backed chatbots can give life to a brand 24/7, 365, aiding in service and engagement. Automation can also streamline supply chains, reducing costs and improving efficiency, which can lead to lower prices for consumers. He's looking at shifts in inequality. The rise of buy now, pay later platforms have helped younger shoppers and those with less incomes finance purchases without the need for traditional credit cards. However, that industry is coming under a lot of scrutiny these days. And social influencers. In the US, this is a blurred line between socializing and shopping is just starting, but it's prominent in markets like China, making shopping more seamless and engaging for consumers. Brands can also use content created by users and influencers, endorsements to enhance their marketing, but not without reputational risk as they use more brand ambassadors. But who will those influencers be, and how can they be used as ambassadors to a growing range of customers? Angel Bellin has worked for one of the world's largest entertainment companies, and now he works primarily with one of the world's largest retailers. When he thinks of the future of shopping, he sees many similarities to the studio world. The future lies in three areas: a portfolio of physical and digital storefront concepts, branded content as entertainment, and a diversifying consumer base. All of this will lead every space and even everyone to become shoppable. We had a pretty wide-ranging conversation. Seriously, check out the full interview in the WTF shopping issue. And we touched on all of those concepts in terms of retail footprints and formats, the idea that shopping and entertainment will merge. Just look at how former retail spaces are turning into experiential anchors with shopping centers, like the old Sears is now a go-kart track and what have you. But we also talked about how the consumer itself is diversifying and what that means for brands. Here's what he told me when we chatted.
What you need to understand is the reality of your consumer and thinking about, do you have primarily a diverse consumer? Is it about retaining a diverse consumer, or is it about recruiting a diverse consumer and making sure that the product assortment reflects their culture? And not only for them, but there's so many other people that are not from those communities that are looking for those products, whether it's different ingredients, different products, different foods, looking for different recipes. We understand when it comes to entertainment that non-diverse audiences are looking for diversity, right? If you look at what's happening in music, Latin music, Afro beats, we understand that it's not only Black and Hispanics that are listening to those genres, they transcend, right? But when it comes to products, when it comes to different categories, we automatically think that it's only those communities that are buying those products. And we really need to rethink that. It's about making sure that you're providing discovery and delight for those communities that they belong to.
Angel says evolving products and messaging is important, as is having various formats of retail from flagship to pop-up to showcase go, to showcase those goods in. So how do you go about creating those spaces? Let's take a look at a couple ideas. The advent of the superstore solved old store planning problems and created new ones. For retailers, it can be challenging to be effectively market and position products in store while managing higher transaction volumes. A cutting edge platform from Ipsos could change that, says Brandon Light, global head of virtual testing in Ipsos' channel performance practice. Traditionally, he says, visual merchandisers have used eye tracking, shop alongs, and other methodologies to observe shopper behavior. But a new tool from Ipsos can simulate purchase decision journeys in photorealistic 3D environments, enabling researchers to rapidly model and iterate on the customer experience without compromising on cost, time, or efficiency. By rendering the smallest details, from the placement of a SKU code to the gleam of a ketchup bottle, Ipsos' platform provides a wealth of true-to-life insights on how customers consider different products. With this in mind, clients can go beyond learning what sells and begin to understand how to influence the outcomes they want. And despite the advances in online shopping, physical retail still rules for most consumers. Retail spaces today are evolving from transactional environments to engaging experiential ones, as the lines between physical and digital are blurring. Helen Herrick, a principal at MBH Architects, is an expert in creating customer-centric retail environments. She says retailers and brands are reimagining the future of shopping, where the store is part of a whole system to lead customers across the threshold to discover brands and merchandise. She, like Angel, spoke of the need to have a retail perform different functions, but there's an emotional component as well. They both talked about retail as a fun, joyful, and a place to explore. Here's what she told WTF managing editor Kate MacArthur.
To continue to have engagement with the customer, you need to then provide the good merchandise, the good customer service, the seamless from I looked at it on my phone when I was on the subway on the way to work. And then maybe I got to the office and I looked at it on a little bigger screen. And then I thought, you know what? There's one down at World Trade Center. I'm going to go check it out. And then I may go back and buy it on my phone anyway. It's all one picture that leads the customer to make a purchase with your brand. I was walking up Madison Avenue yesterday and I was looking in all of the stores thinking, which ones pull you in? And they really are the ones that have a point of view. They've created this vignette in their store that says that you want to say, you're like, yeah, I want that to be part of my life, rather than just here's a big store with lots of racks, because everything is so two-dimensional now on the screen. So that if you're physically going out and experiencing retail, you want to know that the experience is real. That's where the robot, the VR, all of those things, I think it does only help if it helps you have the real experience.
Yeah, tech is going to be further integrated with in-person retail too. And with new features like social shopping, voice commerce, and augmented reality, retailers seek to create personalized, accessible, and memorable shopping experiences. But a unified customer experience strategy is essential to making these channels differentiated and preferred, writes Etta Sentnock, Chief Client Success Officer with Ipsos' customer experience team. For leading edge companies, a streamlined and fun shopping experience is critical to staying competitive. One key component is omni-channel integration, the efforts to create a cohesive experience, even as customers toggle between brick and mortar stores, call centers, websites, apps, and social channels. Retailers have every reason to meet consumers where they are. But if they spread the experience too thin, they can create new vulnerabilities and confuse shoppers. So companies need a holistic approach to delivering exciting and convenient shopping experiences that align with their brand promise, which can drive customer satisfaction, loyalty, advocacy, and ultimately, sales. Loyalty and advocacy is perhaps especially important for a niche audience, but can you scale your niche into a full-blown market? I've talked about one of my favorite niche stories at WTF before. It's the backpacking, sling, pocket knife, flashlight, pen, craving, everyday carry crowd. For WTF Shopping, I took the opportunity to chat with the bearded face of this community, now over 30,000 on Facebook. I just spent a little too much money for one of their collabs, an Unbound Merino t-shirt, and the original drop sold out in seconds. This was the second round, months later. For an independent direct-to-consumer accessory manufacturer, breaking sales records is a mixed bag. Fulfilling a huge rush of orders can be challenging, but the revenue is always a boon. And that's the dilemma marketers face when they collaborate on a product drop with the blog Carryology.com. While millions schlep a black backpack or sling or pen or pocket knife or water bottle, the Carryology community obsesses over these items. Taylor Weldon fosters this community with nonstop innovation, information, and unique products. When he thinks about the future, he sees the challenges and opportunity for marketers and consumers alike. In our conversation, we talked about how Carryology took a blog and built it into a juggernaut. And we talked about how everyone needs to carry stuff, and everyone has bags they carry it in. But not everyone wants to, geek out over that. So you have a mass market and a niche within it, which is kind of fascinating. I went to a Carryology meetup in Chicago, and there were easily 50 to 60 folks, many of whom had come in from out of state just to stand around and kick the tires on each other's collections. But Taylor told an amazing story of going to the one store on Earth that really stocks all of this stuff. It's called Suburban. It's in Hong Kong. And for the record, it's super hard to find. Taylor, of course, made a pilgrimage while he was there, and I once did too. And he watched someone moving around in the store. Here's how he tells it.
She's grabbing backpacks, she picks them up, sends you around. Where for me, if I'm interested in the backpack, I'll research every single thing about it for 6 weeks. I'll not need to think about it. But I watch her, she's okay, what's this one? Look at it by herself. And she's feeling the weight and she at the back, she's like, drive the peak if I want. Okay. And she was choosing a backpack just based on feel and what can weight. So cool. I'm like watching an intimate moment. And I even went over to her at one point because you were like bending you to the wall and she grabbed me. You made it ever get die or something. I was like, oh, the ticket ones, my friends on this company. She looked at me. She wasn't rude, but she's like, why are you buying it back alone? I was like, oh, wow. She's like cooler. I don't care about you knowing someone or you don't want to on the curtain. I want a cool backpack that people care about stuff. I was like, isn't that what we all want? Isn't that what we all want? And there's different ways to approach that. And I'm really happy that she shows her way to do it and she's happy with it. But we all just want a cool backpack. Thick.
Taylor and the Carryologists, and well, I care a lot about some things that most people take for granted. We are unusual because people tend not to spend for spending's sake. Learning the foundational reasons that people can shop can help marketers and managers understand whether they're meeting their customers' needs and channels that knowledge into products and retail experiences that keep them coming back, writes Virginia Armas, senior qualitative strategist in Ipsos's qualitative practice. It's one thing to appreciate the emotions that shape consumer behavior, and quite another to understand how. Using Ipsos's proprietary Syncytium framework, marketers can deconstruct consumer motivations into 4 key quadrants: functional characteristics, social identity, emotional benefits, and personality, and uncover the complex ways they interact and intersect. To develop a people-centric approach, brands must take time to understand shoppers beyond demographics and service level attributes. But the rewards are great. A holistic understanding can help brands craft products that meet overlapping needs and create meaningful retail experiences that drive growth and build loyalty. Now, when we think about shopping, one of the emotional thrills and a reason people shop is scoring a great deal. That prospect has always gotten into bargain hunters in the store and online. But in recent years, that's increasingly included discounters, thrift stores, retailers, and online marketplace. It's also made experts and influencers like Virginia Shomley and her advice on how to hunt for valuable vintage finds go viral. The People magazine writer, artist, and author of Big Thrift Energy explains how affordability, sustainability, and social media are changing the art of the deal. She says that thrifting will succeed and grow because it sits at the intersection of a number of trends and is also a good way for people to be trendy on a budget. Here's what she told Kate.
Thinking about buying it for them, the number of consumers turning to thrift stores and antique stores and estate sales and Facebook Marketplace as a first choice rather than a last resort, I think that will only continue to grow. Because of social media, because of the increase in sustainability, because people are becoming more savvy. And again, that kind of goes back to social media because there are people like me where I'm teaching people how to shop at the thrift store. I think for a long time, super intimidating for people. And so they only went there for a gag gift or because they just couldn't find what they needed anywhere else. As trends change, I think no matter what, we'll see that trends are always rooted in something that's been done before, even if there's suddenly a glut of boomer furniture at the thrift stores. That might be what IKEA is basing their next collection off of. I also think people are thinking more about the next life of their items. So people aren't just thinking about buying it for themselves. They're thinking about how can I one day make a profit off of this? How can I break even on this? And so I think as things continue to be made more cheaply overseas and in factories and that kind of thing, we're going to continue turning to those vintage pieces that were made by artisans or made to stand the test of time.
So if people are finding these online communities and building these groups and niches and discovering so much on social, which is just a constant flood of content, which will perhaps become even more so with AI, how do you break through with your product or service? A brand partnership with a well-known influencer can cut through the noise, but can also steal the spotlight from your brand. By applying a methodological rigor and creative disciplines, brands can leverage the power of social marketing without pushing their message to the sidelines, says Rachel Rogers, Senior Vice President with Ipsos's Creative Excellence team. In a retail landscape where shoppers prize authenticity, purchase decisions are often shaped by tastemakers and the marketers who join forces with them. But launching a successful campaign isn't as simple as collaborating with the biggest name available. A half-baked partnership or phoned-in endorsement can fail to deliver the benefits of brand, according to Ipsos research. Effective campaigns begin with a consideration of how branded influencers can connect. Even a niche account can be the right spokesperson if they're passionate and trusted by their audience. This capacity for empathy and relatability is where influencer marketing shines. So far today, we've talked a lot about buying stuff. But then there's the final step. The act of paying for items and services might not seem like the most exciting part of the retail experience, but it's obviously an important one. Inventing currency arguably propelled us forward as a civilization. Then for millennia, not much changed. But now digital payments, real-time payment, and a shifting world of fees and rewards are creating rapid and potentially seismic changes. In another life, Lynn Merrick and I worked together at Crane's Chicago business. Now she applies her solid reporting chops to the payments industry for Payments Dive. When she thinks about the future, she's watching the challenging financial world for consumers and shoppers alike. She sees 4 big trends to watch: frictionless, response to fraud, a step away from the retail-type settings and embedded payments. Oh, and the rise of real-time payments. But there's also essentially a macro force to pay attention to: rising and now record consumer debt, driven by rising inequality. That's a hard trend for the financial services sector to balance, and also something that every other sector needs to keep an eye on. Here's what she told me when we chatted.
The debts and delinquencies have been on the rise. So that is very much an issue in our industry because payments, especially revenue from payments, rely on people paying to some extent the interest for sure, late payments. So to the extent consumers are having a harder time paying off their debts, that matters to our industry because many of these companies, big incumbents and small fintech alike, make some sort of slice of revenue from either interest payments or other types of fees associated with payments. For this industry, it can actually be somewhat beneficial when you have an increase in those types of payments. But like anything else, if your consumer becomes so awash in debt, you're killing off the very consumer that buys your services. Well, of course, none of these businesses want their customers to be under too much financial duress. And we have seen a decline in that consumer purchasing power. And yeah, it plays both.
Now, say you've created a great store. You've gotten people to visit it online or in person. You've got people who can afford it to or will buy your stuff regardless. How do you take care of those folks? Chatbots and AI tools are seeing more use in e-commerce and physical stores. But which features are shoppers sold on? Recent Ipsos polling shows that just 9% of Americans feel that product recommendations based on their purchase history are the most helpful application of AI when shopping. Respondents are also wary of AI-generated review summaries and image-based product identification, but they're enthusiastic about opportunities to save, which 1 in 4 prefer AI-based recommendations for lower-priced items, writes Zach Sanders, vice president with Ipsos's Retail and Shoppers Insights team. As these preferences influence shoppers' paths from discovery to checkout, brands will have fewer opportunities to intervene in the process. This means it'll be crucial for brands to build initial desire and ensure customers seek out their brands. Next, we want to think a little bit about these central tensions that will take us into the future. And as market researchers, the fun thing about this is we can actually measure these as we are today, and we can track these as they tend to move in the future. So we can see not only kind of where the baseline is today, but think about it in terms of as these tensions shift, how that might change our ideas about the future. So tension 1, we're thinking about shopping online versus in stores, and we're thinking about how much we trust AI influencers or don't. And on the upper left, if our baseline continues, we'll continue to be split where we shop, but lean slightly toward in-store shopping. And that's partially due to trust issues. Disinformation created with generative AI means we don't trust online reviews and have a hard time believing that products themselves are what we think they are. We trust what we can see with our own eyes and hold in our hands to try on, and we want to talk to humans in customer service. But say it becomes harder to shop in person, and it's possible with a decline in globalism, plus the decades-long struggle of physical retailers, that means it's harder to find stores you need with the right stock. And in that case, you might start slipping into the bottom left kind of quadrant and a slightly different future. Tension 2, thinking about our relationship with China and where we are in terms of pricing. And once again, our current baseline is in the upper left quadrant. And if things continue as is, relations with China will remain strained. Tariffs will drive up the cost of goods for many U.S. shoppers. And the U.S. fired up a lot of plants in the early 2020s to reshore critical capabilities like microchips and medical supplies. But that also meant producing those products at U.S. wages, which both lifted the status of workers and the price of goods they produced. And in this world, a reshoring of manufacturing, coupled with a slow rollout of interest rates, cut into a strong economy, meant that rising prices of the early 2020s peaked, but didn't fall much. And another tool when we use at Ipsos when we're thinking about the future is to think about the jobs to be done framework, but spinning that forward into the future. And in a world where people are anxious about the cost of buying and are unsure of what or whom to trust to make decisions, they'll seek curated and relatable guidance for convenient and gratifying shopping. So potential future jobs to be done include help me feel like I'm an informed shopper by giving me trustworthy information, review, and trends. Help me select the best option for me. Provide me with affordable options and variety to stay in control of my budget. Help me express and help me identify through my choice of brands, products, and services. Imagine a world where you could filter the overabundance of information online and in-store to find products that work without repeated trial and error. And as we think about the future of shopping, these are all ideas to be considering as we think about where to move and what directions to go in, what products to innovate, what sort of retail experience we want to create for our shoppers. And I hope you have found a lot of great advice in this issue. Our next issue is going to be our big summer blockbuster, our future of creativity issue. That'll be dropping in a couple of weeks, just in time for Cannes, for any of you lucky enough to go. And we'll be doing the webinar version of this on July 16th. You can register for all of that now at future.ipsos.com. And why do we do this? I always like to close by thinking about why we think about the future. And it's because when you take a few moments or half an hour over lunch to watch a webinar and put yourself into the future, you can think about the world that your customers, your citizens, your audiences will be living in, the kind of context they will be surrounded by. And then you can think about the kind of products and services and messaging you need to create and innovate to get you to your preferable future. In other words, when you imagine possible futures, you're going to ask better questions and do better research today. So thank you very much for coming out. I hope you've enjoyed and gotten a lot out of the Future of Shopping webinar. Recording of this will be available online. Beyond that, you can sign up for our monthly newsletter. It's free. You'll learn when all of our next issues drop. Again, next up is creativity, followed by leisure, news, and the future of food. So again, thank you for joining me. I'm Matt Carmichael, an SVP in the Trends and Foresight practice at Strategy 3 and editor of What the Future. And I will see you all in the future.